Gavin Newsom is facing pressure to pay reparations. The Federal Reserve is lending hundreds of billions to banks. And will Donald Trump be indicted? That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Actor Jason Sudeikis and the cast of the TV show Ted Lasso met with President Biden to have a discussion on mental health. To hype up this meeting, the cast appeared at the White House press briefing, and Biden's Twitter account posted a picture of the Believe sign from the show hanging over the entrance to the Oval Office. Which is cute if you've seen the show. Otherwise, this looks like low-budget propaganda. Why are you questioning my decisions? Did you not read the sign? Biden has made addressing mental health a priority, saying in this year's State of the Union speech, when millions of young people are struggling with bullying, violence, trauma, we owe them greater access to mental health care in their schools. And Biden is tackling this by chatting with actors, playing fictional characters who deal with mental health issues. What's next? To combat rising global CO2 emissions, is Biden going to consult with Captain Planet? To combat rising crime, is he going to chat with Batman? And for corporate greed, will he talk to Bruce Wayne? Hey, why does your chin look so familiar? Speaking of crime, cases of fentanyl overdoses are skyrocketing, and lawmakers in several states are looking to battle that with harsher penalties. Great! Are they also going to announce prison sentences for the CEOs of pharmaceutical companies and doctors for overprescribing opioids? Oh, or sanctions against China for flooding the U.S. with fentanyl? Of course not. They're proposing longer prison sentences for individuals in possession of the drug. They say it's intended to send a strong message to dealers and not punish addicts. What? You don't think that'll work? Did you not read the sign? An assistant professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice said, every time we treat drugs as a law enforcement problem and push stricter laws, we find that we punish people in ways that destroy their lives and make it harder for them to recover later on. It's a complicated issue, and the solution won't be a one-step fix-all. Luckily, Biden is scheduled to have a discussion with the nation's foremost leader on opioid use, Snoopy. Why do you think he's so sleepy all the time? He sleeps that way because he suffers from crippling back pain. A reparations task force formed 2 years ago in California has concluded their research. They initially proposed paying $360,000 each to nearly 2 million black Californians whose ancestors were enslaved in the U.S. This would cost about $640 billion. And it could be even more expensive. The final proposal isn't scheduled to be released until July 1st. The proposal will be sent to the state legislature. California Governor Gavin Newsom is being pressured to take executive action to pay out these reparations if lawmakers don't act on the recommendation. However, this would be hard to do since California currently has a $22.5 billion budget deficit. How did California lose so much money? My guess? Newsom's monthly budget on hair gel, spray tan, and teeth whitener. That probably costs more than most countries' yearly GDP. Actually, it was because California spent so much on other programs. When unveiling California's 2022 to 2023 proposed budget nearly a year ago, Newsom said no other state in American history has ever experienced a surplus as large as this. At the time, he announced the state had a $98 billion surplus and proposed a $300 billion budget plan. Just a few months later, he's now admitting the state is at a $22.5 billion deficit. From allegedly the largest surplus in history to a massive deficit. It's wild that happened in California and not in Nevada. We had a huge surplus, but then I got boxcars while playing craps. Don't worry, after a hot hand of blackjack, we'll be at a surplus again. Newsom says, despite this deficit, he won't need to cut any social programs in his budget, such as paying for health care for low-income, undocumented immigrants. Newsom hasn't announced if he would take executive action to enact reparation payments, but considering how much he spends on those in need, I wouldn't put it past him. He may even send some California money to help out Canada, seeing as they have a prime minister of color. So that's why he kept dressing up like that on Halloween. Way to play the long con, Trudeau. More after the break. Welcome back. American aid worker Jeff Woodkey was set free after being abducted in Niger in 2016. He was held hostage for 6 years by what his family believed to be Islamic State terrorists. The African country of Niger is plagued by several terrorist groups, many of whom kidnap people to make money. I guess starting an OnlyFans isn't that popular among terrorists. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the government of Niger was instrumental in helping to facilitate Woodkey's release. Sullivan tweeted, "I'm gratified and relieved to see the release of U.S. hostage Jeff Woodkey after over 6 years in captivity. The U.S. thanks Niger for its help in bringing him home to all who miss and love him. I thank so many across our government who worked tirelessly toward securing his freedom." A senior U.S. administration official said, "There was no direct negotiation here between the U.S. government and the terrorist organizations. It is worth making that clear. Certainly, we did not pay a ransom or a concession to a terrorist organization here." Part of the reason he felt that was worth making clear is because U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had visited Niger 4 days earlier and announced the U.S. would give $150 million in humanitarian aid to the region. So the U.S. gave Niger millions of dollars, and they immediately helped free a prisoner who was held captive for over 6 years. That's either a huge coincidence or an incredible return on investment. That would be like if a bully stole your kid's bike. A few years later, you gave the principal where they go to school $100, then the next day the bike is returned. While I appreciate the outcome, couldn't you have done this much sooner and for free? Hopefully the government of Niger will be able to put this aid to good use. Jeff Woodkey's story shows that offering aid is a noble pursuit, but you have to be careful where you do it. If after all this Woodkey still wants to travel to run-down places full of crime and poverty, instead of Niger, he can just go to San Francisco. Speaking of impoverished people in need of federal aid, U.S. banks. It hasn't been a great month for banks in the U.S. I covered how Silicon Valley and Signature banks collapsed within a few days of each other. Link to that video is below. Well, the Federal Reserve is here to save the day. They announced they loaned about $300 billion in the past week to banks that needed liquid cash, with nearly half of the loans going to Silicon Valley and Signature banks. Wait, banks that collapsed were still able to get a loan. I was denied a car loan for $30,000 and my credit score is good. Meanwhile, these failures get $300 billion and their credit score right now is yikes. An economist at JP Chase said while this is a lot of money, it's only half of what the Federal Reserve gave out in assistance during the financial crash of 2008. He explained the glass half empty view is that banks need a lot of money. The glass half full take is that the system is working as intended. Okay, but he's leaving out my take, which is the whole reason the glass is half empty or half full in the first place is due to mismanagement. And maybe if the banks wanted assistance refilling the glass after draining other people's liquid assets, they should have to pay an overdraft fee like the rest of us and stop treating the economy like an open bar at a wedding. And after the break, will Donald Trump be indicted? Welcome back. Last Saturday, former President Donald Trump said he found out through leaks from the Justice Department and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office that he was going to be arrested on Tuesday. This potential arrest is over Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, allegedly paying adult film star Stormy Daniels $130,000 to remain silent about an alleged affair she may have had with Donald Trump in 2006. None of this is illegal, but when Trump repaid Cohen, he allegedly wrote that it was for legal fees, which would be a misdemeanor offense in New York for falsifying business records. A case could also be made for this breaking election law since the motive was to keep voters from finding out about his alleged affair. This would be a felony. If convicted of the misdemeanor, Trump would have to pay a fine. If convicted of the felony, Trump would face up to 4 years in prison, although that would be difficult to prove. So, how did Trump react to this? He calmly said it was all just a big misunderstanding and offered to settle it over some chamomile tea and scones. Just kidding. He wrote on Truth Social, "The far and away leading Republican candidate and former President of the United States will be arrested on Tuesday next week," meaning this past week, May 21st. "Protest! Take our nation back." Meanwhile, his lawyers working to defend him on the January 6th Capitol allegations were like, "We're trying to prove you didn't cause protests, and you're telling people to protest?" Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has faced criticism from liberals and conservatives. Liberals criticized him last year after he declined to prosecute Trump for financial crimes, saying the case against him wasn't strong enough. And conservatives have criticized him for allegedly having his campaign funded by George Soros. George Soros is a billionaire who donates tens of millions of dollars to Democrats. So several Republicans are saying this indictment is politically motivated. Here's what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said.
If you have a prosecutor who is ignoring crimes happening every single day in his jurisdiction, and he chooses to go back many, many years ago to try to use something about porn star hush money payments, that's an example of pursuing a political agenda and weaponizing the office.
Many Republicans talk about George Soros like he's the Emperor Palpatine of the Democratic Party. Every time something big happens and they need a big bad to blame, somehow Soros returned. So, did Alvin Bragg's campaign really get a $1 million campaign donation from George Soros? Not exactly. George Soros has never donated directly to Bragg's campaign, although his son and his son's wife did donate $20,000 total to Bragg. So where did Republicans get the $1 million number from? It's because back in 2021, Soros donated $1 million to Color of Change PAC, a racial justice organization. Color of Change PAC had also endorsed Alvin Bragg for DA and pledged to spend $1 million to get him elected. In the end, they only spent about $500,000 to back Bragg. So is there an indirect link to George Soros? Yes. Is it one that fits neatly into a headline? No. The New York Police Department assembled 700 riot cops and erected steel barricades around the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse Monday night in preparation for potential chaos that could ensue should Trump be indicted. However, that may not have been necessary given most Trump supporters didn't heed his call to protest and take the nation back. I've seen more people show up to rehearsal dinners for a fourth wedding. Considering how people are still being charged for the January 6th protests, it makes sense folks aren't really willing to risk getting locked up for Trump again. It's also kind of the same old story. On Monday night, Trump put out this video where he claimed this was all a witch hunt.
Whether it's the Mar-a-Lago raid or the Unselect Committee hoax, the perfect Georgia phone call, it was absolutely perfect, or the Stormy Horseface Daniels extortion plot, they're all sick, and it's fake news.
Witch hunt? Fake news? Saying something is perfect and repeating himself. Is Trump facing an indictment, or is he putting out a greatest hits album? Ooh, I hope it also has Rocket Man and no collusion on it. Plus, it's hard to find the motivation to protest when Trump himself said even if he's arrested, he'll still run for president in 2024. And convicted felons aren't actually barred from running for or holding office. Which means, hypothetically, Congress could be full of a bunch of immoral lawbreakers who only care about benefiting themselves at whatever cost. Glad that's not the case though, right? That'd be so different from how things are now. So, Tuesday came and went, and nothing happened. Then on Wednesday, the grand jury proceedings were canceled for the day. This was, according to some reports, due to dissension within the DA's office over whether or not the case was strong enough to bring charges over. At the time of this recording on Friday, charges still haven't been brought against Trump. So after all that hype, nothing happened? This is like when everyone said the Joker movie was going to lead to a bunch of mass shootings. All it actually did was lead to a lot of bad Halloween costumes and people falling while dancing on stairs. Since Trump is still eligible to run for president, Elon Musk and many others, including some Democrats, predict this indictment, if it happens, could be seen as purely political backfire, and gain Trump more support leading to next year's election. Which isn't that crazy. Every time Democrats tried striking Trump down, it just made him more powerful than they could imagine. Huh. If George Soros is Emperor Palpatine, does that make Donald Trump Obi-Wan Kenobi? I don't know, but I'm sure we can all at least agree that Mitch McConnell is boss nass. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, be sure to support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/America Uncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to fight YouTube's censorship and demonetization. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.